thing.
Fox
to be able
now
to
have
lift
the funny
people's
awards? Do they give the people for like the best, the best humor?
Not yet. I haven't encountered the funnies just yet.
The
not
problem
nominated.
is there's
I'll
not
let
enough
know
of you
when that
guys
happens.
on there, though. That's probably why there's not enough to like fill up a whole, an evening of the fun awards.
No, I haven't come across the funny awards just yet, David. But you will be the first to know should I hear of a nomination imminent. I'll keep you posted.
Well, this is going to be great. Welcome to the White House Pod with David A.R.
I'm going to finish what I started.
It's not easy. It's simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited because today he's an American, but he's an author, a journalist, and a producer. My goodness, he's won all kinds of awards. If you've ever watched a news channel called Fox News, he's all over it, and he's always just the best part of the whole network. So, ladies and gentlemen, my friend and a rock star, Raymond Arroyo.
Hey, David, great to see you. Always wonderful to see you. And it's been too long. Why has it been so long?
I don't know. I think the last time I was on your show, we were doing The Last God's Not Dead. Me and Scott Baio, we were promoting it. Yeah,
this is very true.
Yep. And I think it was at that point that you said
fun.
I can't deal with David any longer. And so,
I did not say that. It's a lie. It's a total lie.
Where are you coming from? Where are you these days?
I am at home in New Orleans right now.
That is just so mind-boggling. I know you've told me about this, of why you live in New Orleans, but you work. Do you ever go to New York to be in studio at Fox?
Yeah. No, I'm often in New York or Washington, D.C., but I actually live in New Orleans, born and raised here, David. And particularly being in all these different pursuits, you need to be rooted in the place where you came from. And I think it's really good because it takes me out of the mindset of so many other folks that kind of get lost. You separate and lose contact with your audience. I've never had that happen, largely, I think, because, we've stayed grounded in the community where we came from. And, when you go to the coffee shop or you go down to buy groceries, people will tell you what they like, what they don't like, what they hated last night. Why did you say that? Or they'll come up to you and say, oh my gosh, I love you. It's a very odd, you get direct customer feedback. I don't have to wait. So I kind of like that. You're very in touch with the audience who you're playing to and reaching every day.
Does anybody ever not like you? Like, whoever says I didn't like that you said that? Like, there's never, ever.
People, they don't hate me personally, which is always a nice thing. But there are people who take issue with things you say, and I love it because I get to explain why I came to that position or why I said that. And usually we have a good laugh, we'll have a coffee, and we move on. It's good. There's no real anger. I don't encounter, I'm very blessed not to have anger in my life in public. People tend to be very warm and welcoming. And look, what I do on Fox is really, I equate it to a release valve, because you're getting all these miserable stories that people are angst-filled and upset about for hour after hour after hour, and then I show up. So it kind of breaks the tension. We try to do something a little lighter, something with a cultural edge. We slip substance in between the gags, but people know they can relax during that segment. And I have come to love that. It's almost therapy to people now.
Does Greg Gutfeld feel like, does he thank you because you were the first really comedic thing, I think, on Fox? Like, I guess Jesse Waters used to go out and ask kind of crazy questions, and he was kind of funny too. But you were really the first funny on and fun to watch on Fox, I think.
Well, not on Fox, in prime time. I mean, look, before me there was Dennis Miller on O'Reilly's show, and there were others who provided that what I have come to now realize is a service. But it's a wonderful thing.
Does Fox
to be able
now
to
have the
lift
funny
people's
awards?
spirits.
Do they give the people for like the best the best humor?
Not yet. I haven't encountered the funnies just yet.
The problem
nominated.
is there's
I'll
not
let
enough
know
of
when
you
that
guys
happens.
on there, though. That's probably why there's not enough to like fill up a whole an evening of the fun awards.
No, I haven't come across the funny awards just yet, David, but you will be the first to know should I hear of a nomination imminent. I'll keep you posted.
All right. How long do we see ourselves at Fox? Like, do you have because you've been doing your show on the Catholic Network, right? ITN?
Yeah, on EWTN.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for how many years? Like 20 some years, right?
Believe it or not, 30 years in 2026. 30 years.
Okay. And
I can't believe it's been that long, but it has
that's a
been.
once a week host, right? That you do.
Once a week, I do that show on a Thursday night, and we interview newsmakers, popes, presidents, Supreme Court justices, directors. I mean, it's kind of a cultural take, but
and Dave White
the
and
Vatican
me,
is our
I've been
beat.
on that show many times too, right there with the popes, presidents, and
and David White. I forgot to mention that. Yes, you're part of the top line mentions. But yeah, it's and you know the show's international. I mean, that show's in 400 and something million households around the globe. We have a huge audience in the UK and Ireland and Africa and Australia. You know, so you hear back from those folks, and it's really weird when you land in one of those countries, and you know you're walking down the streets of Dublin, and this guy comes out and says, "Hi, Raymond, come in here, have a pint." I'm like, "What? Where did you come from?" But so you forget how the footprint of that show has been. And when you're
it's
on
kind
there
of
for
bigger
30
than
years,
Fox,
it's a long
isn't it?
time.
Is Fox in 400 million homes? I don't think so.
Well, no, they're not, but they're the most watched network here in the United States, so that counts for a lot.
That counts for something?
You bet, yeah. But I like my international audience. I love that they're there. And it gives you a broader, you know, when you approach a story, David, you also are looking at it through broader eyes, because this is not just going to play in the United States or a portion of the U.S., but it's reaching the world. So it kind of gives you a different lens when you see things, even events in the United States. You have to kind of take nothing for granted and sort of explain them a bit more and frame them for the world rather than just the American audience. So that's been a good, important journalistic lesson, certainly, for me.
I also think it's amazing that you, I mean, you have an unbelievable background where, you know, you came through as a political, you know, columnist. Seems like that is the trek that you did. But then you're a producer on the Ingram angle, and you're one of the creators, really, of it as well.
I'm a collaborator with Laura. I didn't create the show, but I was there at the founding of the show and had influence on the way it was shaped. But I didn't found. Laura founded the show. She, you know.
I mean, I guess that's why they call it the Laura Ingram Show. But
that's right. That's why it's the
Laura
Ingram angle,
Ingram
not the Arroyo angle. I was for many years an editorial advisor to the show, and I continue to shape content and around the edges. And certainly our segment, I write that segment from top to bottom, and pull that material every night. So I'm very involved in the not only the performance of the show, but the shaping and the creation of it.
For people who want to go into news, does everybody know that they have to write and produce and because I mean, even just to be on have a segment like those poor people who have to go out in a snowstorm and they're like don't they have to produce their own segments almost?
Yeah, well. There's a lot today. There was a time when you'd have a producer who was assigned to you, and you'd have shooters, and you'd have all. Now you're a one-man band, particularly when you go out in the field. But increasingly in today's broadcast reality, you have to be your own producer. And though we still have producers on the Ingram Show, how much longer that will continue, who knows? But certainly, I'd like to take a hand in producing my segments because you have a better hold and grasp with the material. You've actually read the books. You've actually read articles that shape the marrow of that story. So you're condensing it in your own mind. And when you interview somebody, you're fully informed. So it's not. So I appreciate having that background. And look, I didn't start as a political columnist. I was never a political columnist. I was a reporter for Evans and Novak, who were kind of the premier. They wrote the probably most influential opinion column at the Washington Post. And when they released those columns, all of Washington trembled. But before that, I was an actor. I was trained as an actor by Stella Adler in New York and toured in traveling companies, musicals. I worked in England for a time. So that was really my background, David. So if anything, my real skill is human nature. breaking down text, being able to see storylines and through lines and arcs. That's really what I was trained to do. And a lot of that, a ton of that, I use every day in my work, whether it be at Fox, at EWTN, or writing fiction. It's part of the toolkit.
Now, you had a Christmas show, I think last year, going around. Are we doing that this year? Are we on tour this year?
We did not do that this year because my schedule is so crazy. I've got an Arroyo Grande podcast that iHeart distributes, which is 2 shows a week. Then I've got Fox. Then I've got EWTN, and I'm doing other projects on the side. So it's
I think you're
my
a parent
schedule
too.
is so jammed.
Aren't you a parent and a husband around this?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got 3 kids. They're all out of the house now. Everybody's either in college or married or away. So it's just Rebecca and I at home. But yeah, there was a number of years when that was the center of everything, just raising kids and figuring out events around them. And then your life changes. You go through different stages. So we're going through that now. But I'm very busy, so I couldn't do the tour this year. I may do it next year. We went out with Jose Feliciano and the band, and it was just
it was
incredible,
great,
wonderful. Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and the audience loved it. We went to the Ryman and the State Theater in Cleveland, and some incredible houses.
How do people watch? By the way, how do
beautiful.
people watch your show? Your because they can't go to the theater this year and see you there. So how do they pick up the show from last year?
You mean the Christmas show? Well, we haven't released it. In fact, we're in discussions with some people to release the whole concert. But there's a making of this week on my podcast. I actually dropped the making of album, which is like a half-hour documentary, which gives you some insight into, what I did was dive into the backstories of all of these beloved Christmas songs that everybody loves, but knew very little of. And when I figured out the backstory, when you realize the history of things like Jingle Bells or White Christmas, it totally changes the way not only it's received, but the way you shape it. We created.
No, it's not like Jingle Bells was created by a slave owner or like one of the whatever, some terrible thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate Jingle Bells now.
No, it was James Lord Pierpont, who was James Lord Pierpont was J.P. Morgan's nephew. And he was a bit of a louse. I mean, this guy was, he was a womanizer. He married a bunch of times. He was drinking. Believe it or not, he was drinking when he wrote Jingle Bells. And if you go to Medford, Massachusetts, where he wrote Jingle Bells, you'll find a plaque, and they say this is the spot at the tavern where James Lord Pierpont wrote Jingle Bells. Well, he was writing in that tavern because he was drinking rum, which was the thing that Medford, Massachusetts was most known for. And in the winter, they would have these drag races down the main street of Medford. And he watched that outside the window of the tavern, and that's where he wrote Jingle Bells, Jingle Bells, Jingle All the Way. So when you break it down and when you look at the lyrics, David, and I don't ask the audience to do this now, but afterward, go look at the lyrics. It's clear that it is a girl chasing.
They're streaming right now on our Spotify and YouTube.
Well, they might do that, but I hope they don't. I hope they keep listening to us. But
they are while reading.
It's a drag racing, girl chasing, drinking song. I'm sorry to report that, but that's what it is.
Wow.
Yeah. Now the field is white.
Do you want to ruin Christmas on anything else for us right now? Do you want to
No.
destroy?
I'm giving you the facts. These are the facts. We can't live in our little delusion. I know the kids sing it at the grade school, but that's the background of the song. So our arrangement was kind of a little randy. It had an edge to it and propulsive and fun. But
now, were you up there? Were you drinking while you were doing it? You were like, "Hey."
I did not.
I
left the rum backstage, but it had that. It had that animating spirit.
That's
when
fun.
we did it. It's a little raucous and fun.
All right, so it says you've been on all these TV shows, from the Today Show to Good Morning America to Access Hollywood, CNN headline news. So how do we fit into there? Is this like a recent occasion, or was this before, like when it wasn't such a big deal? Apparently our country somehow is divided, or maybe it's not anymore, but it had a rough few years. Is it easy to go on those shows, or is it like you go on there and is like fist fights breaking out? When are we going on The View? Are you on The View?
Well, The View years ago. Laura went on The View many years ago, and there was a book we wrote, the Obama Diaries, and they had us on The View for it. There was a time when those shows were not as political as they've become. And I kind of yearn for that time, but I still pop around. But if I have a project and I'm promoting something, I'll go and do everybody's show. And usually I'm treated nicely. Nobody's mauled me on air. So, but I have friends who've been mauled on air, and I see it all too often. I can't imagine that. I don't know why people would have, I think of this, David, as like being invited into David White's den. So the last thing you want to do is offend a guest or have the guest hate you, or have a war with your guest. Don't have them on, but if you're inviting somebody on, I think it should be a warm environment, one where they can kind of let their hair down and give you the goods and have a good time. And I worry that today it's become more like a mud pit, where you invite somebody in to throw them into the mud and see how much blood you can extract. That's not my experience, and it's not what I want to do in any kind of broadcast or podcast or anything the public would see.
It is kind of like having friends over for dinner in a little bit of a way. It's like it's you getting to know somebody, and it's the joy of getting to know them. And
right.
or if like in our case, I do know you, and I'm excited to hang out with you. I have no dinner for you here, but
well, keep it warm. I'll be right over. Let me get the plane. My flight might get in about 4 hours. Will it hold?
So
put tinfoil over it.
Now, do we only fly private jets from Louisiana to New York when you have to go there, or wherever you go on your Christmas tours these days? Like, how does that work?
Define private. They mean privately owned or my own?
I don't know whether yours or does Fox send a jet for you and they're like, here you go, Mr. Arroyo?
No. Usually, and I like this. When we go out, I travel, the band comes with me. So, and it's a lot of my guys from New Orleans. So we travel together. And there's something, look, if you listen to my Christmas Merry and Bright album, you can hear the tightness of our band. Everybody, there are members of this band who've been playing together for 30 years, and it's like conversation. When people know each other, there's a different vibe. They just get on a different wavelength, and the music becomes its own communication. But the orchestra's tight. You don't always find that in a pickup band, which are people you just pick up on the road and you give them the music. You won't find that kind of cohesion. So I think it's important to travel with your band, eat with them, be near them, because it promotes that family spirit, which does fill and change whatever you're doing in front of an audience. And the audience can always tell the difference, David. You know this from the ensembles you assemble for your movies. And there are people you work with time and time again. You do that for a reason. Yeah. Because of that spirit of it's a family. It's somebody you can lean on. They know you. They know your failings. They know when to get out of the way. And you know when to get out of their way when something's coming or something's happening. And I think, so no, I do not fly private. I fly with everybody else.
All right. How many books have we written here? You've written quite a few of them.
Oh, my gosh.
Do we like writing books, or is this like, or have we retired from writing books? It's arduous. I've only written one book, and it was a lot.
They're brutal. Look, brutal. It's a lonely art because it's really just you and the page and your audience you're writing for. I find it's time consuming. I don't know about you, but I need hours and hours to write. I like to clear and have a 4-hour stretch, and that's hard. It's just hard with my schedule. But I just finished another picture book, and I'm working on an adult book. And then there's a middle grade series, a Will Wilder series I did for Random House. That book 4 of that series I am working on. So I have things kind of brewing in the background, and I go to them when I can. But yeah, it's a lot of work. Writing is hard. But you know what? It lasts, David. It lasts a lot longer than some of the other things we spend our time doing. Particularly if it strikes a chord, like I had a picture book at Christmas called The Spider Who Saved Christmas. Every season I get letters from people and kids and families that they came across the book, they read it to the family every Christmas Eve. I love that it's part of their tradition and part of the way they celebrate. So as arduous as it is, there are things you can do in writing, on the page that you can't do in any other format or platform.
Raymond, you're fascinating, though. When I met you years ago, I didn't realize you write best-selling books. You take private jets, actually not even private jets sometimes, And you're part of, you have 5 shows on the air right now and a podcast just to add to it because you weren't doing enough before. So my question is...
You're making me more tired just hearing
I'm tired.
this.
And it started out...
No. I loved it. I thought it was fun. I have to say, one of the things I love about live television is you plan it, you lay it out, you do it, it's over, you move on. Years ago, Stella Adler brought Marlon Brando in one day I studied with Stella Adler in New York when she was still alive. You're going to be envious of the people I studied with, David. Stella Adler, Uta Hagen, Sandy Meisner, Bobby Lewis,
Wow.
Beatrice Straight, whom I assisted in teaching won an Academy Award for Network. Biddy was the keeper of the flame of the Chekhov method, Michael Chekhov's method. So I got to study with all the apostles, really, of 20th century American acting, which was an incredible thing.
Most of them were all in the group theater, I think, right? They were in the group theater.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Well, certainly Stella and Meisner and Bobby Lewis were all members of the group theater, yeah. So it was part of that old, incredible heritage. And to be a part of that, the problem is it does train you, I realized many years after, it trains you for something that really doesn't exist in the marketplace anymore. You know, you're kind of, Stella used to always say, I'm training you to be an aristocrat so you can rise up to play a king or down to play a peasant. Well, that's sweet, except those roles don't come to you all that often. I mean, you're going to be playing yourself in many of these things. So look, I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's something I enjoy doing and would happily do again. But I also understand why Marlon Brando said many years ago he hated the theater and wanted out of it. And I couldn't figure out how anyone could say that as an actor. But his explanation was, and I totally get it now, after about 3 weeks or 4 weeks of doing a role, 3 weeks, you figured out everything. Between rehearsal and the 3 weeks in front of an audience, all of the edges, all of the moments, all of those turns, as an actor, you've kind of unlocked them. And then if you have an operable mind, it kind of gets boring after a time. Then you're kind of repeating rather than being in that moment. And so I totally understand that. So the theater thing I see, what an incredible gift when you have people like Carol Channing or Yul Brynner who do a role for 40 years. I mean, that's incredible. It really is incredible. And to keep it fresh night after night. But yeah,
it's similar It's similar to being on a TV show in a lot of ways because you're playing the same.
No.
I mean, you're playing the same role.
You're playing yourself, David. And so so you're not burdened by the limits of a character or someone else's dialogue. You're improvising. You're in the moment, and you're also entertaining new people every night or every show. So there's a variety in that keeps you fresh, keeps you moving, keeps you different. A show is set. It is set. And no matter how much you can play in it, it's pretty set. And but
that was my point. That's my point, though, is that it's similar. The theater, I know, obviously, theater's in front of a live audience that you're jumping off a thing every day. But that's why you're saying Marlon Brando was bored of that.
Yeah, he was.
And it's the same thing. Can you imagine if Marlon Brando was starring in CSI Miami or CSI New York? He would have been really bored of that.
Yeah. But you know this TV world and film world. The thing that you reminded me of when we did the God's Not Dead movie, the waiting around, David. Oh my gosh. I can't take the waiting around. You see, I like to go and do it and let's get it done. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Back to the trailer, what are we eating? The waiting, I used to think it was horrible. Frank Sinatra used to do one take and leave the set. He would tell him, you do the setup, let me know when I'm to arrive. He'd come, he'd do the hit, he'd leave. If they had to do some pickups, he'd do one more, and he's out of there.
Wow.
I used to think, what an arrogant, awful man. Not anymore. I think he's absolutely correct.
Well, Clint Eastwood kind of did that, too. Clint Eastwood's been doing that, with the 8-hour days. Clearly he's not doing a lot of takes. All right, so here's my question. So our podcast is called The White House Pod. Dare to Dream is the big thing. And you have, it's twofold. You have done so many things in your career. You have accomplished so many. In fact, I don't even know where all your awards are. And I'm looking in your background, and I'm like,
they're not here.
They're not there, exactly. So,
storage.
But what is the words of advice that you give to young people who are trying to follow their dream? and how to go about doing it, and given the fact of everything that you've accomplished and how you've done it?
Well, I'll tell you, whether you're going into a performing art or you're going into journalism or anything to do with an audience, learn a specialty. Find a passion in your life outside of that discipline that you can pour yourself into and gain a skill and an understanding that no one else has. I mean, part of what I bring to journalism and part of what I bring to live television is that whole performance background, and having done Racine and Moliere and Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams. Once you have that stuff in you and you've done it a lot, it does reshape the way you tell stories, the way you interact with an audience. You come with a heritage behind you. And I feel the same way about, journalists I meet. They go to J school and they learn
That's journalism school for all of those
journalism
out there.
School.
Yeah.
Yes. And they learn the tricks and the protocols of journalism. But that really doesn't get you very far. I mean, what you need is experience in the world and a point of view from that experience that's different from others, a specialty. So look, I entered journalism via the Associated Press and kind of cut my teeth with these great people, and surround yourself with great mentors. That's the other thing I would tell you. Find the best people you can who know something. Get near them, pour them coffee, clean their shoes, get their laundry, but be near them, because you will inevitably absorb things from them that you can use for your own work and your own journey, and that is critical, and we don't do enough of that today. Kids think today, look, and I have some children, I've met their friends, we talk. There are kids in their 20s who think, oh, look, I'm ready. I graduated. I'm ready to take on the world.
What do you know?
Nothing.
They also look at you and they're like,
you know nothing.
You don't know anything. This is a new world.
But you can learn it.
And
you can pick it up. Well, and being near great people, David. I mean, we picked up, this from the mentors you had and worked closely with. You do absorb and learn things from them over time.
Do you still have mentors today?
I do.
Interesting. In what arena do you still need help in?
There are writing mentors of mine that still, live, and I frequently talk. I better not mention who they are, but I do. We converse, and I'll send them things when I'm working on pieces or projects. There are directors that are dear friends who I will send things to if I need a different set of eyes on something, or I'm not sure about a storyline, whom I trust. And I'll send them something and they'll kind of bounce it back and forth to me. I hope I never get to a place where I don't need mentors. And hopefully you are a mentor to others. It's a tragedy. A lot of my mentors have died, which, my spiritual mentors, my Bill Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist, who was a dear friend, and I think one of the great American books, certainly one of the great American films. Bill Friedkin, who directed The Exorcist and The French Connection. They were great friends and pals, and they would help me shape storylines or things I was working on a lot. So you lose people along the way, but you take their memory, you take what they gave you, and hopefully pass it on to others. That's what this is about. Stephen Sondheim had it right, David, and it's why I love what you do. There are only two things we leave when this is over, and I would say this to young people. Get this in your mind now. It's so true. Stephen Sondheim wrote a show called Sunday in the Park with George. One of the great lines is, the only thing you leave behind are children and art. Children and art. That's the only relic that will be here once we're gone. Spend time on those two things, and you may leave a legacy worth remembering.
Raymond Arroyo, you said it best. You always do. I just want to say thank you so much for coming back on. Not even back on. I've been trying to get you on this show, I think, for Dylan,
this is
how
my
long has it
first
been? 2
appearance,
years?
But I'm glad the memory of it was so memorable. You forgot I was there before. No, I've never won before. This is my first appearance. And I'm more happy, David, you didn't ask for a rewrite after that monologue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being on here. I know you're going off to work today, right? Somehow that's what I got.
I've got a podcast to tape, and then I have Fox this evening. So it's
my goodness.
My juggling continues, Dave.
Yes, it does. Leave me with you know what? I'm not even going to ask. Yeah. I'll ask you this in person.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm going to ask you this in person because I think it's it's better left off
conversation.
The air.
Okay. Well,
All righty. So we'll leave
All
the
right, my
audience
friend.
wondering, what is that question right
what
now?
did they talk about?
Yeah, please.
I'll write about it in my next book. You can check that out.
Bam. Thank you so much.